So here's a little back history on how my story began. It's February 2015. I had to go to do an annual physical checkup for my work. We all dread them. Didn't know what the doctor's going to tell you. You think all the bad things. I'm walking in. First thing they always tell you is jump on the scale. And to me, that's always the worst thing. You're always dreading that scale. So I get on the scale, and the scale reads 455 pounds, 54 pounds. And I was like, there's no way I weigh 455 pounds. The nurse was like, if you want to try again, we can try again. So I get off, I get back on, and sure enough, it's correct. And at that moment, the first thing I thought in my head is, there's no way I'm 50 pounds away from the 500-pound man on TV. I couldn't, it just did not sink into my head. And I remember walking into the doctor's office and sitting there, going through my physical, going through my checkup. She basically was like, you seriously need to do something about your weight. And I was already just blown away because this is the heaviest I have ever been. I really, with work and life and being a dad and family and just trying to provide and focus, you never take time out to figure out, work on your health, make sure you're doing things right, and no one sits there and tells you, hey, you're huge. So I just kind of, you go on with life, and next thing you know, you just end up the size you end up. So basically sitting there and her telling me all this stuff, and she said, why don't you try the gastric bypass surgery? And at that point, I was just so blown away about the weight. I said, sure, I'll try anything. I'll do it. And they told me, okay, well, it's going to be like a 12-week course. You're going to have to do some classes once in a couple of weeks or what. But I think it was like some 12-week classes before we can actually approve the surgery. Are you interested? I said, yeah, I'll do it. And to me, I was just like, all I could think about was my kids, living, and I have to somehow get this weight off. Comes around a couple months later. I start the first class. I go in there, and throughout the time, I was like, okay, by the time I start the classes, I'm gonna start doing something. And then it was Monday, I'm gonna start doing something. Then Tuesday, I'm gonna start doing something. And then next week, and it never started. I ended up starting the class. My actual first weigh-in was 454, which was the same weight that I was on my first doctor's appointment. It was May 12th, 2015. I remember that date. And in that class, the goal was to, in the period of time you had to be there, you had to lose 5% of your body weight, which means I had to lose 45 pounds in that time that the 12 weeks of the class was off. And I'm looking around the class, and I'm looking at people, and these people are like, oh, I got 20 pounds, 15 pounds. They're looking at it, I got 45 pounds to get down to get approved to get this surgery. So as I'm going through the class and I'm learning, and basically the one thing I'm realizing, one day's about food, one day's about the emotional effects, one week's about the surgeries, and as I'm going through it and I'm listening to everybody and I'm listening to the whole process, and oh, you can't eat this, you can't do that, and some people have these problems, and in my head, though it may be a tool for somebody, I didn't think this tool was going to be for me. I got myself into this mess. I was going to get myself out of this mess. And I didn't need excuses. I want to eat a steak. I want to be able to eat a burger. I want to be able to have a soda. I don't want to have to worry about wearing a diaper. I wanted to have the freedom that everybody else has to eat and do what they want. But if I eat something bad, I want to be able to go and exercise and get rid of it. So I said, you know what? I got myself into this mess. I'm going to get myself out. So they went around the room and they asked everyone, hey, what surgery are you going to get? What surgery are you going to get? And there's different options. And they got to me and I said none. I said none. I am not getting any surgery. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it on my own. And that day, during that time, that 12 weeks, slowly but surely, out of those even 12 weeks that I was there, which you'll see in some of the pictures, I started off. But guys at work, my buddies at work were like, "Let's go." So I started laps around the building, one lap around the building. Then a couple days later, 2 laps around the building. Then maybe a week later, I think it was 3 laps around the building, and a little bit at a time. And then we have a big old hill at work. Then slowly up. This is the hill. This is the hill that I started. So when I first initially started to walk up, this is the first fire hydrant right here. The first fire hydrant that I made it to. And then I walked back. And then next I made it to this next building. I remember I used to think right here, because it was so late at night, I used to think like, dude, if I walk through here, I'm so big, a mountain lion's gonna eat me. And then I made it up to this fire hydrant and back down the hill. And granted, it's only 30 minutes, but it's a long time. And then Jaime, my boss, pushed me all the way up to one day he pushed me all the way up to this street.
Kitty!
To this street right here. Then my next one was this right here. This fire hydrant and this transformer. All the way from work to back. Then I was stuck here for a long time. This right here. The RV place, this fire hydrant right here. Because granted, I have to come all the way up 15 minutes and then all the way back. And then when I last stopped was this fire hydrant right here. This fire hydrant right here. Meanwhile, these guys are going all the way up here to the top of the hill. Like in half the time, to the water tower, all the way up here and back down. By the time I'm barely making it up. And slowly and surely, as I went through, I made my way. As dudes were running up the hill, coming back down, I was barely coming up. I was barely getting to my fire hydrant, and the guys at work were coming up and coming down, and I was determined to slowly but surely make my way up to the top of the hill, and I slowly made my way up to the top of the hill. That was my exercise to 400. That was basically all I could do was walk, and I think walking is an understatement. It was waddle up the hill and waddle down. But the one thing I did learn, and the first thing that I focused on in that thing, was my food and my nutrition. And I was eating with work, going between some jobs. I was eating, maybe I would go in, grab some quick burgers, some fry, whatever, a shake, done. And then that was it. I wasn't eating nowhere the close amount of meals, nowhere the clean food that I needed to be eating, the right food. That wasn't putting no fuel into my body. All I was putting was crap into my body and hoping my body was going to function on that. So my first goal was diet. Get my foods in. I was 5-6 meals I would prep for a day. Slow little meals. Boom. Eating meals. Clean meals. Eating, oatmeal in the morning. Low fat foods. Every salads. Cutting out no soda. No fast food. And I ate clean. And at the end of my graduation, for the surgery, I think there was 2 people in the class that actually hit their weight, and I lost the 45. I was 401 pound. I told the nurse at the end, I said, if I need to take off my pants to get that 1 extra pound, I'll do it. And she said, no, I'll give you the pound. But I lost my 45 pounds. I hit my goal weight, but I never needed the surgery. I just kept going. So after that, I went to my first gym. I went to a small little hole in the wall gym, um, and late night I worked a mid shift, so I got off work at 11:45. I slowly went in the gym and I started a little bit at a time lifting weights, lifting weights, and that's where I fell in love with lifting weights. And it reminded me way back in high school lifting weights, but it was a little bit at a time. You know, it was bench pressing and, you know, some machines and curling and, you know, just the simple weight stuff that you did back in high school. And it was slowly but surely, it was lifting weights. And I fell in love. And then it was, I wonder if I could get in the morning before I went. And lucky enough, it wasn't no 24, it wasn't no big gym, it was no golds. It was little Anytime Fitness, little hole in the wall where there wasn't that many people. And I was able to be in there and work my way down. I ran into a couple people, which a guy, a real good friend of mine that I trained with, and he would say, hey, do this, and hey, you need to eat more, you're not eating enough. And he really helped me work on my nutrition, really helped me work on form, and really helped me get focused on actually doing the right things that I needed to do. And, you know, slowly but surely, I did some bodybuilding.com challenges and I worked my way down. And I said, hey, Arnold, you want to help me push this challenge? I want to see what I can do. And I started a challenge, and I think I was at that time 360 pounds, and I pushed all the way down to 320. And he helped me for I want to say it was 12 weeks at that time, 12-week thing, 12-week challenge. And at that time, he's like, you know, he introduced me into keto, because he was actually training for a competition. But he got me introduced to keto, and a keto diet for me was amazing. I was like, I can do this diet. This is food. I can do this. And that's when I started learning about keto, which I will go on and off all the time. But I got into a keto diet, and I slowly pushed and pushed and pushed. And I hit around the 328 mark at that time. And then I did another final push. I think it was another challenge, the Next Generation Challenge for bodybuilding. I did that one also, and I pushed all the way down to my lowest weight, which was 298. This is where a lot of the weight was shedded. This is this right here. This is my home away from home. 24. Many late nights, many early mornings. This is the hot spot where dreams are made of. And that finished at the end of September of 2016. So over this period of time, as you can see, it was a long drive. Over about a year and 6 months, I went from 454 to 298. And at the end of September, I had some medical issues, which you'll see, and kind of set me back a little bit. But going forward, you're going to see my next push and my next drive down to my original goal weight that I wanted, 250.
Success, many will love you for it. The majority will hate you because your success makes them feel insufficient in their current endeavor, reminds them of where they could have done it but they came up short, and how they didn't revisit it, where they went at it and failed, and failure is what stood. They never revisited it again.
I said, God, why is this happening to me? I'm just trying to take care of my children and my mother. I'm not trying to steal or rob from anybody. Why did this have to happen to me?
Pain is temporary. It may last for a minute, or an hour, or a day, or even a year. But eventually, it will subside, and something else will take its place. If I quit, however, it will last forever.